Welcome to the OK Let's Learn podcast. This is two podcasts in one. One where we dive into tons of interesting topics, and another where we dive into tons of interesting books and stories. My name is Kevin O'Keefe. So today, let's learn and read together The Fall of Troy and the Trojan Horse. Yes, it's a story that was not written by Homer. It's a story that needs to be part of the Homer's Iliad and the Odyssey, and we're making it part of this, a trilogy. Yes, so many questions were unanswered at the end of the Iliad, and then all of a sudden, you go right into the Odyssey, and what happened to Helen? What happened to Achilles? What happened to the end of the war? Did the Trojans win? Did the Greeks win? Did Troy get destroyed? What happened? And oh yeah, I'm going to introduce you to Odysseus, the hero of the Odyssey. So what happened? Unfortunately, as with many things in life, everything was lost. If it was written down, it wasn't preserved. It was lost to history. But it was still told and retold. And ancient Greeks, bottom line, just knew these stories just as well as they knew the Iliad and the Odyssey. But no doubt, the best known later version was written by the Roman poet Virgil, 700 years after Homer. His poem, the Iliad, tells the whole story of the Trojan horse from the point of view of the people inside the city of Troy. His version became no doubt the most famous retelling of the story in history. So today we're going to weave together all these ancient traditions into one continuous story, and we're going to answer the questions that Homer left unanswered. So sit back, enjoy, and let's learn and read together The Fall of Troy and the Trojan Horse. The funeral fires had grown cold. The people of Troy had said their final farewell to Hector, the greatest defender. For a brief moment, the battlefield outside the city walls fell quiet, but everyone knew the peace would not last. The war had entered its 10th and final year. They didn't know that at the time. The Greeks still camped along the shore. The Trojans still stood behind their mighty walls. Neither side had surrendered. Neither side could find a way to win, yet the greatest tragedy of the war was still to come. Achilles stood once again at the head of the Greek army. The death of Patroclus had changed him forever. He no longer fought for glory. He no longer fought for honor. He fought because grief had become the only thing he carried into battle. Every day the Trojans watched him sweep across the battlefield. No warrior seemed able to stop him. The Greeks believed that as long as Achilles lived, Troy would eventually fall. But fate has a way of reminding even the greatest hero that no one escapes forever. One day, during another fierce battle near the walls of Troy, Prince Paris stood upon the city's defenses. Paris had never possessed Hector's courage or Achilles' strength. He was an archer, though. He wasn't the greatest warrior, but on that day, he drew back his bow. According to the ancient legends, the god Apollo guided the arrow through the air. The shaft struck Achilles in one place where he could only be wounded. His heel, Achilles' heel. The great warrior stumbled. The armies watched in disbelief. Achilles, the man they believed almost impossible to defeat, collapsed upon the battlefield. You see, according to the ancient legend, when Achilles was a baby, his mother, the sea goddess Thetis, dipped him into the magical river Styx to make him nearly invincible. But as she held him by one foot, his heel never touched the enchanted water. That tiny spot, The Achilles, right there by his ankle, remained vulnerable. And when Paris's arrow struck there, the greatest warrior of the Greeks fell at last. He was gone. Silence spread across both of the armies. Even many Trojans felt down in sorrow. They just couldn't believe it. Their greatest enemy had also been their greatest opponent, a hero worthy of respect. The Greeks recovered Achilles' body and carried him back to their camp. There they mourned him with sacrifices, songs, and funeral fires. The greatest warrior of the entire Greek age was gone. But still, the war moved on. The war had to continue. Weeks passed, months passed. Still, Troy refused to fall. Its towering walls remained untouched. The Greeks had tried everything. Years of fighting had accomplished nothing. Finally, one man proposed an idea unlike anything the world had ever seen. His name was Odysseus. He wasn't the strongest Greek. He wasn't the fastest, but many believed he was the smartest. If we cannot defeat Troy with strength, perhaps we can defeat it with our cunning, our wisdom. His plan sounded almost impossible. Build an enormous wooden horse. Yes. What? Build a wooden horse. A huge horse. One large enough to hide an entire Greek army. Some doubted the plans. Others laughed at the plan. But after 10 long years of failure, there was little left to lose. So they went to work. Trees were cut down, carpenters worked day and night, and slowly the enormous horse took shape. It towered over men that had built it. When it was finally finished, a small group of the bravest Greek warriors climbed inside its hollow body. Among them was Odysseus. The rest of the Greek army boarded its ships and sailed away, at least far enough to disappear beyond the horizon. The beaches outside Troy felt strangely silent. The sun rose the next morning. The Trojans looked down from their walls. The Greek camp was empty. The ships were gone. Only this giant wooden horse was sitting there. What? At first, no one moved. Could it be true? Had the Greeks finally given up? Had Troy won? Soon the gates opened. The Trojans cautiously walked onto the empty battlefield. They searched the abandoned camp. They found no soldiers, no weapons, no army, only this strange wooden horse. What was this? Was it a gift? Was this just a strange appearance out of nowhere? Some believed it was an offering to the goddess Athena. Others thought it was a monument celebrating the Greeks' departure. Still others warned, no, this is a trick. One voice in particular pleaded with the people. It was the priest Laocoon. He cried out, do not trust this gift. Do not trust this gift. They do not bring presents, these Greeks. Something is up. He urged the Trojans to burn the horse where it stood, right there and then. But no one listened. According to the ancient story, 2 enormous sea serpents suddenly appeared and killed Laocoon and his sons. The frightened Trojans believed the gods themselves had punished them for speaking against the horse. Now they were convinced the horse was sacred. With joyous celebration, they tied ropes around the giant wooden horse. Thousands of hands pulled together. Slowly, inch by inch, the horse rolled towards the gates of Troy. The people cheered, musicians played, children laughed and danced in the street. After 10 years of fear, they believed the war was finally over. That evening, the city celebrated. Food filled the tables, wine flowed freely, songs echoed everywhere, and families were finally safe and sound. The soldiers laid down their weapons. As darkness settled over Troy, one by one the lights in the cities disappeared. The celebration gave way to silence. The people could finally sleep without fear of worrying anymore. High above them, the stars shone over a city that believed it had survived. Then, in the deepest hour of the night, a hidden door slowly opened in the side of the horse. Odysseus climbed down first. One by one, the Greek warriors followed. Not a word was spoken, not a sound. They slipped silently through the sleeping city until they reached the great gates. Slowly, carefully, they unlocked them. Outside, hidden beyond the horizon, the Greek fleet had been waiting for this very moment. The ships returned beneath the cover of darkness. Thousands of Greek soldiers rushed through the open gates. The battle that followed was swift and terrible, and it was over before it even had started. The sleeping city got up to the sound of shouting, crashing doors. The streets filled with confusion. Many Trojan soldiers, they stood up and they fought bravely. But it was no use. The surprise was here. It was done. It was complete. The Greeks now controlled the city they had failed to conquer for 10 long years. By sunrise, Troy had fallen. Its magnificent palaces were burned. Its towers collapsed in flames. The great city that had stood for centuries and for 10 long years in this war was now gone. The Trojan War was over. In the middle of all this chaos, King Menelaus went looking for his kidnapped wife, Helen. Remember, no one knew where she was. All they knew is that they were after her. This is why they went to Troy. 10 years. 10 years. They had fought battles, lost friends, everything to bring the king's wife home. At last, he found her. The ancient stories tell us that his anger nearly overwhelmed him. He had every reason to seek revenge, yet when he finally stood face to face with his beautiful wife, Helen, once more, everything changed. Some say her beauty reminded him of the woman he had once loved. Others say she begged forgiveness with tears in her eyes. Whatever passed between them that day remained only known to them. Was she kidnapped? Did she leave with Paris? Did she love Paris? Menelaus lowered his sword. He forgave her. Together they left the burning city. Eventually they returned to Sparta, where they ruled once again as king and queen. For them, the whole long journey, 10 years, war, everything was done with. It was finally over. As the smoke drifted into the morning sky, the surviving Greek kings gathered what remained of their armies. Some would enjoy peaceful voyages home. Others would face storms, shipwrecks, tragedy. And one man, the clever architect of the wooden horse, well, he would begin the greatest journey of them all, Odysseus. He believed his journey home was only going to take a few weeks. Instead, it took another 10 years. He would fight monsters, outwit giants, resist powerful temptations. He would survive deadly storms and travel farther than he ever imagined, all while trying to return to the wife and son who had waited for him through 20 long years of war and wandering. But that, my friend, is another story. The Odyssey, the third of our trilogy of stories all about the Trojan War. And you know what? Odysseus, the story's not over. He's got to find his way home. Will he get home? But finally, one final question hasn't been answered. The whole Trojan War started because the Prince of Troy, Paris, kidnapped Helen. What happened to him? According to ancient legends, Paris never lived to witness the fall of Troy. He never lived to see Helen return to his husband, the king of Sparta. Before the Greeks' final victory, he was struck down by an arrow fired by the Greek hero Philoctetes. Friends, thanks for taking this journey with me, learning all about the fall of Troy, the story of the Trojan horse. Look forward to being back here on our next episode, learning all about the Odyssey. Reach out to me at kevmok21@gmail.com. We are on Facebook. We are on YouTube. We are on Spotify, iHeartRadio, any podcast platform that's out there. And yes, we are on Twitter and X as well. I love the reviews, the subscription, and the ratings. Thank you as always. Until next time, have fun and keep learning.